right now it's hard to deny that Jordan Peterson seems lost. And it seems like basically everyone has turned against him. And everyone is making guesses about the motives behind his stances and actions. And it also seems like most people have forgotten how many people he helped. It's like the past 10 years doesn't exist for many people. So what I want to offer today is a more benevolent way of looking at one of my past heroes, and maybe offer something that all can learn from as well. Hello from Sweden and welcome to Everyday Mystic, a channel about God, freedom and spiritual awakening. My name is David and today I'm going to talk about what has happened to Jordan Peterson. But first I want to get a little bit personal. Jordan Peterson spoke for the most part to people in their 20s. But for me, it was more in my mid-30s that I started to feel like I was lost in life. It was not like I had done everything wrong and had learned nothing from it. In fact, I had acquired quite a lot of self-knowledge, but not enough wisdom to apply this self-knowledge into creating a constructive life for myself. I had sort of failed in my education. I had gone astray in many different parts and in the end produced nothing more than a bachelor's degree from 6 years of education. But when I look at Peterson today, I could say that being lost at 35 might not be such a bad thing because, as I said, Peterson seems a bit lost now that he's in his mid-60s. So, something I was very clear about when I got into contact with Jordan Peterson's material was that I needed a father figure. I needed some sort of older role model. And so that was, if I'm being honest, what I very consciously made Jordan Peterson into. Don't get me wrong, my dad is great. But he's very different from me. He values very different things in life. He lives a very different life from the one I aspire to live. And we also sort of had a lot of problems when I was a teenager that still makes this type of relationship where I actually look to him for guidance as sort of complicated. So this is the background to how I found my way into the advice from Jordan Peterson. And before we go on, I want to just play a couple of clips from his infamous Jubilee debate with 25 atheists, because I think, for one, these clips highlight some of the big problems with how Jordan Peterson presents himself today, and also they stick in within the areas that I'm most interested in, which is religion, spirituality, and also self-development, which naturally falls into the context of this video as well.
Why are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
Don't be a smartass.
Well,
and I mean
either you're a Christian or you're not.
I won't talk to you if you're a smartass.
Oh, either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell you.
You don't have to tell me. I was under the impression I was invited to talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video.
You're really quite something, you are.
Aren't I? But you're really quite nothing, right? You're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him.
You've said that worship is when you prioritize and sacrifice for something, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's a hierarchy in there.
Sure. So I prioritize and sacrifice for my wife more than I would prioritize and sacrifice for a random person on the street, right? Assuming a good marriage, are you saying I worship my wife?
I'm trying to define worship.
Well, that's what I'm asking. So prioritize and sacrifice. I do
the
those
higher
things.
it is in the hierarchy, the more what you're doing is akin to worship. But even in your trivial acts of attention, you're prioritizing and partaking in worship, even if you don't know it.
So I am
And it's partly, well, with regard to your wife, say. So why do you value your wife? You do value your wife.
Yes, I love her. So I prioritize and I sacrifice for her.
Right. So that's within the confines of love, let's say.
Sure.
What else does it serve?
What else does what serve?
Your love in your marriage.
I mean, I am married to my wife because I love her. That's also why I prioritize and sacrifice for her. Right. I certainly wouldn't think I worship her, and I don't think anyone else would make that.
I'm
Are you
trying to
making
make
that
a
claim?
definition.
Okay.
Yeah, that there's a hierarchy of attentional priority, and as you move up it or down it, depending on whether you think about it as a pinnacle or a foundation, you move more towards worship.
So God says that you can own people as property. He says that you can beat them with a rod too. He commands genocide in Deuteronomy, in Numbers, and in Samuel.
The biblical library is a continuing story, and everything written in it has to be contextualized by the entire text. There's 65,000 hyperlinks in the biblical text. And you can take pieces of it out of context and criticize them, and that's what you're doing. But that's a mistake. I think it's an analytic mistake because you're putting the cart before the horse.
I really don't think so. I think that if we say that something is Christian ethics, then I think that all of the books essential to Christianity would fit with it, especially if it's like the main character. When we're talking about
How do you deal with
God,
the morality of war?
So,
how do you think you should deal with the morality of war?
Sure. Because I feel like the morality, like I feel like Christian ethics, like this is kind of, I guess I just think it's like kind of an absurdity to say that God doesn't fit within Christian ethics, but sure, well, we can go on my ethics, that's totally fine.
I don't know what you mean by an absurdity. What game are you playing with that
I just think that it's an absurdity to say that the Christian God doesn't fit within Christian ethics, that like the Christian God isn't like Christian ethical.
I said that the specific statements that you made don't take the context of the stories into account, and so that your analytical approach is faulty.
Sure.
Don't put words in my mouth. I don't really know what to do with the terrible, blood-soaked, saturated history of the human past. I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows. I mean, what you try to do in your own life, as far as I can tell, is to conduct yourself in a manner that makes such things much more unlikely.
I totally agree.
We're all saddled with the problem of the catastrophes that got us here, aren't we?
Yeah, but this one was commanded by God. That's the problem.
Yeah,
That's what differentiates it from anything else, is that this one, it's God saying, go and do this atrocity.
Do you think that there's ever such a thing as a righteous war?
I'm skeptical. I'm not sure. It would probably be situational.
Well, right, fair enough.
Yeah, but this one certainly wasn't a just war. The context for the Amalekite slaughter is that 400 years earlier, they fought one battle, which they lost, and God says, that's it, I'm gonna wipe them off the face of the goddamn earth. And then 400 years later, he commands the Israelites to genocide their great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren. That's not a just war at all. And also, a genocide is not a war.
Well, a genocide can be a war, but...
Absolutely not.
Look,
the genociding of the Amalekites, the men, the women, and the infants, that's not a war. The infants aren't combatants.
Look, I already said that it's very difficult to look at the blood-soaked past and to know exactly what to do about it. The answer I gave to the gentleman who is sitting here before you is that it's necessary to read a text like the Bible at all of its levels of analysis simultaneously. It says the insistence on voluntary self-sacrifice as the foundational belief. That's a profoundly anti-violence ethos.
Do you have the belief in your theology?
Well, what do you think of that? Wait a sec. Now, redress what I just said.
So I'm about to address it, but I'm addressing it with a question. Do you think that God is, by his very essence, perfect?
You'll have to provide more.
Sure, just like maximally great and all, like the great making qualities.
Sure.
Yeah, like flawless. Yeah. So,
okay,
so does a flawless thing change? Does a flawless thing reveal like more and better information over time, or would a flawless thing say, here's what's good, here is the absolute good thing to do at all circumstances in time?
Well, we know some of that.
Wait,
Tell the truth. That's one.
That's totally fine, but presumably...
No. You don't get to skate over that. That's totally fine.
It's a straw man of my position. It's a straw man of the argument. So
the
argument is that God...
Wait a sec. You said find one maxim that's transcendent across
I
situations.
didn't say
and I
any
just
of
did.
those words. I'm not sure what
Okay,
conversation you're
rephrase
a part of.
Don't be a smartass.
I'm sorry.
Seriously, I mean it. If we're going to have a serious conversation, conduct yourself properly.
Okay.
So why was I so drawn to Peterson? Because he pinpointed something important without sugarcoating it. I was not taking responsibility for my life in the manner that was producing the outcomes that I wanted. And I had not really looked at things from that perspective before. I thought I was a fairly responsible person, but when I started to truly examine myself, I started to see a lot of things like not really wanting to owning up to my mistakes, not having a good clear plan for the future, living with a lot of wishful thinking, and also a lot of behaviors and even thought patterns that I had sort of been sweeping under the rug, like for example allowing my mind to go into all kinds of dark corners without stopping it, or for example engaging unconsciously, I want to add, because this was not something I did on purpose, but when I looked back at it I could see how I could be unconsciously manipulative. So these were some things that sort of hit me like a ton of bricks when I was around 35, 34, something like that. But Peterson also offered something else. He did not say, stop with everything that society tells you that you shouldn't do and just go out and be a obedient little citizen and try to make something that way. No. He talked about conscious rebellion, for example. Being conscious about what you go against. Being clear when you are breaking from the norm, why you are doing it. To not just doing it because your ego tells you to or something. He was not just speaking about responsibility, he was also speaking about freedom. He was speaking about actually building something meaningful, not just about how to become another brick in the wall. And as I said, he did this with no sugarcoating, but also no hopeless grind, and he gave a lot of useful advice. Some of them were very simple actually, like the first in his 12 books for life. Stand up straight with your shoulders back and your gaze pointing forward or something like that. I don't remember the exact quote. But there is something to this. This simple little posture change. And he of course got into a lot more detail about it. But this simple posture change will in fact have a large effect on how you feel if you can stay aware enough to actually do it. So that was one thing. And also, as I pointed out, freedom and no moralizing choices, no condemnation, no shaming, just very sound basic advice with also a spiritual undertone to it. Because even though some people want to debate this and discuss this and have different ideas about it, if you listen closely to what Peterson says, it is very clear that he is at least not an atheist. He is at the very least an agnostic that leans towards the mystical, towards the spiritual, towards the religious, with a specific affinity for Christianity that we will get to. So, I actually agree with a lot of criticism, but not the way it is presented, which I regard as mean-spirited. I honestly regard it as quite immature, and I regard it as quite ungrateful, because a lot of people are saying, oh, he's just selling out to Ben Shapiro, he's selling out to the Daily Wire, and so on. I'm not going to speculate too much about his motives, but I think the last 10 years shows that he's not just a simple sellout that just does what he does to make money. That is something I think we can be clear about. But I think he is a man with some serious character flaws that for a long time he could keep in check. But I think his fame and the criticism that he has received lately, together with declining health, together with the addiction that he struggled with, that has taken a toll on him. That has in some ways broken him, I think. And I actually want to mention this about the addiction a little bit, because I think this is an important part that people are criticizing him for, that I think is unjust. We're not gonna name any medications because I don't think the algorithm would like it, but the medications that he took was prescribed to him from a doctor. They were very addictive, just as addictive as the most addictive substances you can buy, actually. Again, he was prescribed this by a doctor. And when he realized that he was addicted, he took every measure that he could to deal with the addiction. But as I said, it was a very severe addiction. And these medications came from him dealing with his wife's cancer diagnosis. Also, I agree when it comes to his dealings with the Daily Wire, for example. In Peterson's past, he warned people about ideological possession, about being swallowed up by a particular ideology. I don't think that Peterson is ideologically possessed, but he is definitely balancing on the edge of it, and doing it together with people that definitely are ideologically possessed. Now I can understand this push to choose sides. I can understand this because this is what the internet does, this is what internet culture does. And I honestly think that Peterson has gotten sort of an unhealthy relationship with debating in general. And we are very much in the times that we are living in being pushed towards the left or the right. And it's sort of kind of frowned upon to not take a stance. And for me, I make it very clear that I don't take a stance whatsoever when it comes to this. But I can understand why a person such as Peterson and others, if they are pushed to it, would lean more to the right than to the left, because right now, at least from my limited perspective, with what I am seeing on the internet today, people on the right seem to have things together more than people on the left. It doesn't make their opinions or worldviews more valid, but when people on the other side, for example, are standing around and you see one person after another standing on TikTok, on Instagram and elsewhere and cheering for the unaliving of one of their political opponents, for example, I can totally understand why that is not something you would want to be a part of. Now, this might not be the best example, as this happened after Peterson allied himself with the Daily Wire, but this example also avoids me saying too mean stuff about some people in the other camp, so to speak. let's just leave that at that. Does Peterson have a difficulty taking a stance on things that he purports actually to take a stand on? Yes. So he has issues, character defects, and blind spots. But again, his insights has also helped loads and loads of people. And I actually see a lot of people that were priorly helped by Peterson now coming out and going against him instead. Furthermore, just to, bring everything up here. The Middle East, online anonymity, the infamous Jubilee debate that I mentioned before. Are these things problematic? And extra problematic for someone in his position? Yes. And I want to actually bring out specifically the Christianity part, because this is actually one of the things I think is most interesting when it comes to this. And also most relevant for what we are talking about on this channel. And I want to make a more benevolent observation of how Peterson is treating Christianity. Because I actually listened through his whole biblical lecture on YouTube. Every single episode. And this is a person, I might say, that really has delved deeply into the symbolism of the Bible. Understood it on a deeper level than most theologians, I would say. But for one reason or another, it seems like he is also leaning towards the belief system of Christianity. And I think that a part of him knows that he can't, in a fully intellectually honest way, defend the whole belief system. He can see the value of the Bible applied to individual lives. He can see the deep, rich symbolism in, for example, the Genesis story. He can see the deep symbolism around Jesus. And these are where Peterson really shines when it comes to religion. But when it comes to doctrines, dogmas, and so on, he seems a bit lost, and therefore I think that Peterson does not really, because this was one of the issues that he actually was criticizing the atheists for. He was saying that atheists don't know what God they are rejecting. And I would say that, and not in a condemning manner, because I think this is a very difficult question. But I think that Peterson does not know what God he stands for. This is why it sort of becomes a word salad when he tries to debate people about religion. Again, I don't think Peterson is an atheist. I'm very confident he is not. But I also think that Peterson has a problem really knowing and defining where he stands. And I understand this. Because for me, for example, I know that God exists. I also know that every single being, and really every single atom in the entire universe, are parts of God's one mind. These are things that my experiences are telling me in no uncertain terms. But this comes for me with a lot of contradictions, because I also feel that God is deeply personal. I feel that our individuality is important. And this of course raises some contradictions when it comes to, if we are just part of God's one mind, why does individuality matter? How can we really have a personal relationship with this God, and so on? These are questions that I'm still wrestling with. And I think Peterson wrestles with a lot of questions when it comes to God as well. And I think that because because this topic is so very difficult to grasp, I think it's also very difficult for him to have an honest and open conversation and debate with people about this. And I think this is at the heart why it looks so bad when he does the debate in Jubilee. So if he could release the attachment to the belief system, I think he would be in a much better place when it comes to this. Again, I understand this because when I started to see the value in the Bible, when I started to see the value in Christianity, and that there was something more to the Bible than just another religious book, I also felt this pull towards the belief system, towards accepting the whole package. So I understand why this happens. But I think that for a person with the mind of Peterson, with the dispositions of Peterson, it would be very wise to take a step back from the belief system. And let's look at what Peterson was so criticized for in this debate and in other contexts as well. Because I think this also is something that highlights some of the problems with debating and language in general, actually. And this is when Peterson gets stuck in this just define this and define that word and so on. And people make a lot of fun of him because of it. And this sort of stance, once you see through it, you see that you can't really take this stance in a debate because you will just get lost in an endless row of definitions without really getting anywhere. But it also highlights the problem of language. Namely that usually we are speaking in very imprecise ways. We are not totally aware of what the words that we are using mean when we communicate. We also put different emphasis in different words depending on individual dispositions, to the point where one person might mean a completely different thing by a word than another person. And it becomes even more difficult when you are dealing with rather difficult abstract notions, difficult abstract words such as religion, God, faith, and so on. By the way, why not just take a pause and reflect a little bit on what these words actually mean to you? I think that unless you haven't already done this exercise, you will probably come to the conclusion that it's not that easy to define the words that you are using, even words that are supposed to mean a lot to you, that have an important role in your life, are still difficult to actually pinpoint. And it becomes even more difficult when you start to put them in specific contexts and so on. So, where does this all lead us? Well, we are a pretty confused bunch. That might be a rather trite conclusion, but people are confused. And the more we start to unravel what is going on inside of us, what motivates us, what makes us do this or that and so on, the more we come to the conclusion that we are pretty messy. We don't really understand our motives. We don't really understand what we stand for. We don't really understand our worldviews or what drives us. And we, even if we can do quite a lot of soul searching, we still come to the conclusion that, well, I'm pretty much a mystery to myself as well. So, with this, I want to say this, that this video is sort of to use Peterson's words and the relationship that I had with Peterson in the past. I think I'm actually taking a step away from this now because I am starting to build my own views of things. I'm starting to really question everything I have taken for granted. And I'm starting to really find out what I truly think about things. And that means that I am deviating from what I once looked up to it with Peterson, what I once looked at as indispensable rules for making life work and building my own thing. But with this video, to use the terminology of Peterson, I want to rescue the father from the belly of the beast. Not that I think Peterson will actually listen to this, but because I want to bring out another voice in this context. When I see so much hate being poured on a person that has done so much good for so many people. And that's where we are going to stop today. If you like this video, leave a like, leave a comment and share the video on social media and other places. And if you haven't done it already, subscribe to the channel. All of these things helps this little small channel to grow. And also check out my other channel that I'm running with my wife, Internet Mystic Database. There is a lot of AI in it, but it is a human touch in every video. And there is nothing in the videos that me and my wife do not stand behind. And we go through the scripts and add our own comments to every single video on the channel, so check that out. I think this is a responsible, moral way of using AI. And other than that, just check out the description and the comment section for other things that me and my wife are doing. And sincerely, thank you for your time.